Welcome back to GrokTALK. Brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and GraniteGrok.com.
New Hampshire's leading conservative and libertarian blog site, where we have opinions about almost everything. And if we can't think of one, well, ask us in 5 minutes.
You might not even have to wait that long. Just bring it up. We'll talk about it. All right. Well, so far so good. One more segment to go. And we don't want to leave out some local politics and some local politicians. We try to bring in some candidates for state senate, and we try to bring in candidates for U.S. Senate, and we try to bring in candidates for governor, and everybody. If you're a candidate, we want to have you on the show. Even if you're a Democrat, and I can say that because you'll never come here, but we keep asking you, and you will not do it.
Regina thinks that we're kidding.
Yeah, no,
we do.
We would.
No, I'm afraid you're not.
Okay, so Regina Birdsell's with us. She is running in Senate District 19 for the state senate.
Wyndham, Derry, and
Hampstead.
Hampstead. And you're from Hampstead, right?
I am.
Yeah, because you're a house rep from Hampstead.
Yep,
so on
I represent Hampstead and Kingston.
And you are also part of the NHGOP hierarchy. You are the chairman of
the Rockingham County. I'm chair of Rockingham County Republican Committee, and we are just coming off a great event with Marco Rubio. So I'm very proud of my team. They were great.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you for letting Granite Grok cover that event. It was fun. We had a number of interviews because that's what we do, and we live streamed it. We had quite a few hits. A lot of people were watching online, and a lot of people have watched it since we do record it.
I have sent it to my sister to watch.
Yes, and that's kind of what we like to do. We do those kinds of events because other people can't seem to get there from wherever they are. So we do that for the people who can attend, or for time-wise, let them watch it at their leisure.
Exactly.
Content upon demand. But I want to say thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
So my question is, why are you planning, or what's the reasoning behind your stepping up from being a state rep, where you're one of 400, to be one of 24?
Yeah. I'm running mostly because I want to bring more fiscal responsibility to the Senate. They've been doing a great job, but I think we need, there's been some issues that have gone through that I think we need to look at kind of correcting.
What kind of issues are they?
Medicaid expansion.
Okay.
I voted against Medicaid expansion in the House. I voted against the gas tax in the House. So there's a number of, thank you. There's a number of things that I think I can bring to the table because I've got experience. I've got 4 years in the State House, so I do have some experience on legislative issues, and I've also, worked with both sides. Tried to work with both sides, especially this year, or this term. So I think I bring a lot to the table, and I think I would be a breath of fresh air to our district.
All right, a few more questions, because, and I'll put it right there on the table, we are to the right of Attila the Hun. So, everybody in New Hampshire pretty much seems to know who we are and what we stand on, which is the constitutional values, both the U.S. and especially the New Hampshire constitutions, as well as the platform of the NHGOP, and we opine from that direction. And I'm glad to hear that you said that you would have voted against Medicaid expansion, because there are already rumors that the feds are not going to be able to pay 100% for the first 3 years, and any sane individual is thinking $17 trillion heading close and fast to $18 trillion in debt. How much longer can the Fed continue this? Chuck Morse, the New Hampshire State Senate president, said, "I have protected New Hampshire taxpayers." I got news for you guys. Just the four of us sitting here at this table, we're also federal taxpayers. So thanks for doing us no favors at all. But what's going to happen in this state when the 3 years, let's suppose that the 100% continues on, then it's up to us to start anteing in. Who's going to protect the New Hampshire state taxpayers then?
Well, that's primarily why I voted against the Medicaid expansion, because, there are a number of issues with it. First of all, they have a sunset clause in it. Okay, that's great. It's a sunset clause. If the federal dollars don't start coming in, then it's supposed to die.
Unless revoted.
Unless revoted. So Now you have given the legislature the dubious honor of either voting off 50 to 100,000 people off the rolls and throwing them out in the cold, as I'm sure we're going to be labeled, or we terminate the program, or we burden the taxpayers with continuing this program. And the other issue that I found with it was the fact that they're actually going to some of the people who are getting coverage now are going to be from their employers are going to be will be eligible for this program. So now we're taking people off their employee paid coverage and putting them on. So I'm concerned for the taxpayers.
Has there been, I bring this up every time I have somebody in who's been even remotely attached to this. Is there any talk among potential Senate candidates, people in the House, about what we can do for New Hampshire to make this problem go away, which is to say, what can we do to revitalize the state, to increase employment, which would reduce the number of people who need Medicaid, to improve the economic environment in a way that if and when the time comes to get rid of this program, that we can do it?
Well, as far as I know, at this point, there's not been any discussion in either the House or the Senate. But that's part of my district is very unique in that they are, especially Windham and Derry, they're looking for more economic development. And I know that Senator Roush, as much as I disagree with some of his votes, he has been doing a good job on trying to get some economic development. And I want to continue that work, at least for the Windham and Derry area, and preferably for the state, by reducing some of the regulations, because we have really onerous regulations on businesses.
Such as?
Well, most anything. If you want to open a bit, for instance, I was looking at opening a business for making dog cookies, because I love baking and I love my dogs. So I went to look into it. I have to have a state authorized kitchen to be able to make dog cookies.
What?
Exactly. So, so I would have had to rent from someone who has been approved from the state level to use their kitchen. So it's little things like that, and I've talked to a number of people that are in that business, and yes, they actually rent kitchens from bakers on the weekends so that they can make their cookies. So it's little things like that I think, for small businesses.
Right. I mean, we are a small cottage industry state.
Exactly.
The vast majority of the businesses are 10 people and less. My question to you on that is, what is the cost, the barrier cost to get into that marketplace? You're selling to dogs. It's not like you're selling to humans. I mean, nobody wants to make dogs sick.
Right.
Okay? We've had enough with the Chinese rawhides coming over and killing the dogs. But how do you go? I mean, DES. No, is it DES? We just got a pamphlet saying that they want to, or the energy folks, they're basically going to do almost a state cap and trade kind of deal outside of, or in addition to Reggie. And it's like, how do you rein in these out of control bureaucracies from the legislature?
Well, see, part of it is I know that, and I'm learning this because I sat down with one of the selectmen from Windham, and they're looking at trying to put some sewage systems in, and the DES has put some really restrictions on it, but they're capable of doing that because they're given rulemaking authority, and that's part of the problem, I think. And it's been a complaint in the House anyway, that we're allowing too many of the departments to be given rulemaking authority. So we're giving away the store. We're giving away our authority.
And that's the point we see at the federal level, where these bureaucracies are almost, they are the legislature, the executives, and the judicial branch all wrapped up into one.
You have no appeal with a lot of these. They're going to come in, they're going to rule, they're going to take away your property or your rights.
Yeah, there was one family had to go all the way up to the Supreme Court just to make the decision, yes, you can sue the EPA. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. But
Well,
how did we get this place?
I don't know.
And how hard of a political battle is it going to be? Because the progressives, their end goal is this exact technocratic administrative state where, democracy, not so much. Let the experts take care of it. And the bureaucracies are already acting like that because the legislature and the legislature has given them so much. How hard of a deal is going to be to start ratcheting that back?
It's going to be.
And can you do that in the state senate?
I think we can try, and we can. It's baby steps with anything in this case. Trying to pull any type of authority away from people is going to be difficult. When you give your child a cookie and then you try and take it back from them, what do you get? You're going to get a fight, and that's pretty much what we're going to deal with. But you take baby steps like anything else. And I mean, when you talk about regulations, look at what happened to California in their farm community when the EPA came in and said you can't farm here because of some sardine or some fish. That's inappropriate as far as I'm concerned. And it's the farm belt in California that they've affected.
Yeah,
so
to save the silver darter, otherwise known as bait, they turned off the spigots to the inland kingdom, which is one of the most fertile areas in the world, just needs lots of water to save bait fish.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where the government seems to be more concerned with taking their original mandate to heights never to be believed at the beginning, and we're starting to see that here in New Hampshire as well. We saw that with DES and the waterfront type stuff that they were doing. So beside the Medicaid expansion, the regulations, what are some of the other top things that you would want to try to accomplish?
Well, I think primarily I'm going to be representing Hampstead, Windham, and Derry, and I'm still in the process of talking to the selectmen, the councilmen, to find out what their hot-button issues are. And right now I found that most of it is economic development. Windham is they're doing some good stuff. They've gotten a really great economic development planner in Windham, and she's working with the Chamber of Commerce in Derry. And I'm starting to, in fact, Monday or Tuesday, I have, there's a Derry Chamber event in Hampstead. They're trying to bring Hampstead into it. I'm going to be going to an event at the little wine shop we have in Hampstead. So I'm starting to make inroads and kind of learn what they want and how I can serve them.
Does it seem like it's any different from Hampstead? Because I lived in Hampstead for a little while.
There are 3 different towns and 3 different, I won't say cultures, but you have Hampstead, which is a bedroom community, very quiet. You have Windham, very much into economic development, and it's kind of a commuter town. And then you have Derry, which is a larger town, and they have a lot of commuters as well, and they have a lot of apartments and condos and things. So 3 different types of towns, 3 different types of issues. So it's been interesting. I did get the chair of the Derry Council has endorsed me, Mark Osborne. He's a really good guy, and he's helping me some in Derry.
Okay. In general, a question from the state. The motto is the live free or die state from General Stark. Death is not the worst of all evils. But are we still the live free or die state, or have we gone sufficiently blue enough where they go live free under our rule instead of live free or die?
I don't think we're there yet. And, I know a lot of people think that some of our best days are behind us in both the federal level and the state level. But I think we have a chance here this year to move ahead and solidify the live free or die state. I think our best days can be ahead of us, and that's what I'm looking to do.
Hey, let's take 60 seconds, and we'll be right back with Regina Brittle.
She tried to make us believe she was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Nancy Stiles has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, she claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along voting like a liberal Democrat. She voted to raise your gas tax by another 23%, taking a bigger bite out of our wallets every time we're at the pump. And oh, how she drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now the Senate wants to pass a bill to prevent us from criticizing Senator Stiles' vote. Call Senator Stiles at 603-918-0553 and tell her that we're on to her wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell her to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
GrokTALK.
All right, we're back with Regina Britzel, running for State Senate, District 19, in the lovely state of New Hampshire. For those of you who are listening from elsewhere and aren't quite sure what the heck we're talking about when we say live free or die, or as I'm beginning to think, love, fees, and cry. Maybe I'm looking for a new way to spin that until we fix it. But I know we can, because we've done it in the past. It really just takes one good session with we need a Republican governor.
That is one of the biggest issues we're going to, talking about some of the regulations, we need a Republican governor to get some of these issues.
I'll go one step further. A Republican governor that will act according to Republican conservative values, constitutional values. I'm not going to... The three of us could say lots of things that you can't.
And we need a Republican governor long enough to replace some department heads, to replace some judges, to do a bunch of different things.
I'd be happy just to clear out the lawyers so that maybe we can go after some of the vote fraud stuff. But that's neither here nor there. Regina, so many of us are non-natives here in New Hampshire. Now, I've been here almost 30 years. I came up for a job and then stayed because live free or die, to be honest with you. I fell in love with the political philosophy that I was freer here than where I grew up in Massachusetts.
Yep.
How long have you been here, or are you one of those rare birds, a native?
I am not a native. I'm originally from Virginia. I graduated from Thomas Dale High School in Chester, Virginia, and I joined the Coast Guard. And
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
What did you do in the Coast Guard?
I was a yeoman first class. And keep in mind, we're talking, and I won't date myself, although one of the reporters did date me that I talked to the other night. When I joined the Coast Guard, there were only two, this was as long ago, there were only two positions available for women. One was yeoman, which was basically HR, and the other one was cook. It wasn't until I'd been in 4 years that they opened it to electronics and eventually bosun's mates and things like that. So I was only the second year into them opening it up for women full time. So I did 10 years, 9 years, 11 months, 28 days, but I really wasn't counting. And I served, and that's how I actually wound up in New England, because I started out in the dismal swamps of Virginia and got transferred up to Boston because I wanted to go to school part-time as a veterinary, to be a veterinary. And then I found out that you can't go part-time. So I was stuck up here in the meantime. But I served another, I think, 4 years up here, and then I moved into I left the service and started working for Raytheon. And in '96, I had adopted one of my first standard poodles, and he and I moved up to New Hampshire so I could have him run loose in the live free or die state. So I've been here since '96.
Oh, very good. You mentioned Virginia, and I just had to smile because here we've got Clinton Buddy and Mr. Gladhander and funder of green energy stuff that kind of went sour. Terry McAuliffe.
My favorite. I have a brother-in-law who, they still live in Virginia. He's been serving as the liquor commissioner for the state of Virginia for many, many, many years. He's a lawyer. and he served under both Democrat and Republican governors and served them well. Terry McAuliffe comes in, and 1 week after he came back from vacation with us, Terry McAuliffe laid him off.
Oh, it's because he had a crony who had to fill that seat.
Exactly, and the crony is coming from the DMV, I think, and he's moving him over to be the liquor commissioner. He has
DMV liquor commission. There's a
he has no experience.
Moonshine driver.
The lines will get longer. We can predict that much.
So
that shades of the Clinton White House canning the travel office to bring in their cronies.
Yep. So that was interesting, and it's too bad. I mean, he's 63 years old. He's been serving both Republican and Democratic governors over the years, and Terry McAuliffe comes in and throws him out.
Oops.
Yeah.
So is there anything, if you get elected, hopefully, go to the New Hampshire Senate, when you get there, given the landscape as you can see it from the House, and so you've been there for a little while, a couple of years anyway. 4 years, and so you know what legislation's come through, and you've seen it under O'Brien and you've seen it under Norelli, so you have a pretty good taste of different styles and priorities and things like that. There's things that need to be undone. Would you agree?
Yes.
Where do you think we start?
Well, first of all, we need to get our speaker. First of all, we need to take the House and the Senate, and with a decent majority. And we need to get a speaker in that will. I haven't been keeping up with the MET. I understand that there was an agreement made. I think it was yesterday. So I need to look and see what the MET. But we have some fiscal issues that are going to be coming up. So I'd like to see this, the House and the Senate work in tandem together. And I think we can do that. What's disturbed me over the last 2 years is some of the legislation that I've seen coming through, and most of it's from, obviously, the Democrats. But it's all Washington-style legislation, and it seems to me they couldn't pass it on the federal level. So it's starting to filter down through the states. You've got pay equity, and as I'm an HR rep, and I'm also a contract recruiter, and I understand the rationale behind that bill, but it's not needed. The state of New Hampshire has equal opportunity. They've had it since 1947, and women are one of the best negotiators for their salaries that I've seen as a contract recruiter. And I worked in the high tech industry. So I'm disturbed to see that a lot of this legislation is coming from, Washington, D.C. down to the state levels, and they're passing it. They're capable of passing it right now on the state level. So I'd like to see some of the legislation that's going to be affecting the small businesses start pulling back on those.
There is, because we had the pay equity bill.
Yeah.
We have the minimum wage, which
Yes.
is all kind of tied to the same thing.
CPI,
We had right.
That's attached to the CPI.
Yeah, and then we had we already had a distracted driving law, but they keep packing new laws on top of that. First it was texting, then it's cell phones, and you're right. It seems like, and the cell phone ban came from LaHood. He's like, I want to ban cell phones in cars. 2 years later, we have bills in the House. The minute they can get them passed, oh look, let's ban this, let's ban this, let's ban this.
Right.
And so you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to clean some of that out, and we really need to get ourselves in that position. And like you said, we need the House and we need the Senate, we need a governor.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you look back on the Bill O'Brien era, and he did a great job on the budget. And I might add, so did Ken Weiler, who was chair of finance at the time, and he's on my slate in the House, in Hampstead and Kingston. They did a great job on the budget, and we're going to run into the same issue. So I think that they need to work in tandem, and start looking at seeing where we can pull back.
Question for you. I think it's a great topic that you brought up, Steve, because we see Democrats trying to homogenize every single state, so they're pretty much cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Which then later on is like, well, why move? Because they're all the same. And they're going to continue to try to do these things over and over and over again. So what do we have to do to keep New Hampshire, New Hampshire? I mean, beyond the happy talk that, well, live free or die, yada, 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 yada. But when you start looking at the laws underneath that, all you go say, maybe not so much. Now, I think it was Governor Walker in Wisconsin and his legislature got rid of 1,200 laws, unneeded, old, out-fashioned, outdated. What kinds of things need to be done so that civil society, government, civil society, people, how do we expand civil society back out again so New Hampshire is New Hampshire and just put government back in its limited government box like our platform says it should be and our founders wanted?
Well, I think that's a good question, and I think we need to actually look at some of the bills that either we have passed recently or some of the underlying bills, and a lot of it is communication. Where I think we can do a lot more communication on how it's going to affect each other. Now, one thing I being in the Bill O'Brien and the supermajority and being under Terry Norelli, I've seen both sides. And I sit pretty close to the front, and I'm watching the Republicans when they talk, when they speak up on a bill and go to the well, and I see how the Democrats, and especially the pay equity, no, it was the minimum wage, and the chair of the Labor got up, and he made it so personal. And we have a tendency to throw out numbers, and people just don't equate that. And I think if we need, and I plan on bringing it home to people to let them understand what these laws are doing. And I think that's part of what we need to do is look at some of the bills that have been going on and make them personal to people.
Well, the music is starting to play. Regina, I want to say thank you for coming in to spend time with us with Granite Grok. Would you be willing to come back and talk some more?
Absolutely.
And what about a website?
It's coming up. It's regina4nh.com.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy. Mike Rogers, thanks again to Warner Todd Houston for taking 30 minutes out of his morning on the weekend to be with us.
And Crispy.
And Crispy Bacon
for calling in from a mountaintop somewhere in Arizona.
Early in the morning for him. So we'll see you next week with more guests, more news, more information, and more Grok Talk.
GrokTV.